Rabbi say good morning. Let us begin with a beautiful, beautiful daf ahead of us today. Begin by thanking our sponsors. To thank our TORAH sponsors, Shmuel Leba Dinovitz, for dedicating all the Shirman Drashos in the zechus of an aliyas for the neshama of Shmuel's father, HaRav Peretz Avraham ben Harav Benyamin Moshe. We thank our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Hirsh and Gail Goldberg, for dedicating the shir in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Hirsh's son, Yonasan, Leib ben Moshe Tzvi HaLevi. We hope that on the merit of our Talmud Torah, the neshama will have an aliyah and the family a neshama. And I say with that, let us begin. A really magnificently beautiful daf today. So I will say today's daf is daf ches 8. We are picking up Emir Hashem on Zayin Amud Beis 7b, 2 lines up from the bottom. TORAH Rabbanon says the Gemara. TORAH Rabbanon mevarchin. So already in yesterday's daf we began the sugya of Sheva Brachas. And halacha l'maaseh, we had a machlokes in terms of where we know. In other words, we had a couple of machlokes. Number one, when do we recite Sheva Brachas? That was number one. Number two, we spoke about again how many people do you need for Sheva Brachas. So now the Gemara says mevarchin berachas chasan ba'asara. We make Sheva Brachas with a minyan. Kol Shiva, all 7 days of we'll call it rejoicing, all 7 days afterwards. Now remember again, we spoke about in yesterday's daf that halacha l'maaseh, that is presupposing that this is a first marriage for one of the parties. So 7 days of brachas with a minyan. I'm Rav Yehuda, v'hu sheba'u panim chadashos. That's an incredible halacha. Rav Yehuda says, but this is assuming that there are panim chadashos, new faces. Meaning, what Rav Yehuda is coming to say is like this: the ability to recite Sheva Brachas each of the days after the wedding is fundamentally dependent on the presence of panim chadashos. There has to be someone new who's attending the simcha. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says panim chadashos b'chol yom shelo hayu sham esmo. What's the definition of panim chadashos? Panim chadashos means someone new who wasn't part of the celebration yesterday. And I will say, we're not going to get into this morning, but I will point out to you that there is a fascinating machlokes regarding what constitutes panim chadashos. So you see that according to Rashi, really it's just that then as long as you weren't at Sheva Brachas yesterday, right, it sounds like even if you were there at the wedding or a few days before, that is actually going to constitute panim chadashos. If you take a look at Tosas says something quite beautiful. It's the last 2 lines of the daf. V'hu sheba'u panim chadashos omeri. The panim chadashos ein kore ela b'bnei adam shemarbim b'shvilam hasimcha yoser. So this is interesting. Tosas already gives what's the idea. What's the idea of panim chadashos? Tosas explains the assumption is that when there is someone new who shows up at the simcha, there's almost like a simcha renaissance, a simcha resurgence, right? Someone new who has not been part of this chassan and kala's life, so when they come, there's a new added dimension to the simcha. Tosa says, therefore, based on this, the Shabbos, the chashvinan panim chadashos. Rabbi say this is why by Sheva Brachas, Shabbos itself is considered to be panim chadashos. And if we paskin this way, halacha l'maaseh, we do accept the idea that for Sheva Brachas you are supposed to have panim chadashos, a quote unquote new face every day at Sheva Brachas, except for Shabbos. We pass like Tosas that ultimately again Shabbos counts as panim chadashos. So beautiful. Darminan ba'agada mizmor shir yom haShabbos amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu panim chadashos bo lekan. I said the Medrash on this capital of Tehillim of Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbos says, what's the song of Shabbos that the Ribono Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu said when Shabbos came? Panim chadashos bo lekan. A new face has come here. So Shabbos counts as panim chadashos. He goes on, Ashira Hasam Nami Marbin L'chvod HaShabbos B'simcha U'B'Seuda. Since in general Shabbos itself brings with it an additional dimension of celebration, an additional dimension of Seuda, therefore Shabbos counts as panim chadashos. Truly beautiful. So my mevarich. So I will say, so what are the Sheva Brachas? Am Rav Yehuda. So I'll say, here we go. Am Rav Yehuda. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. That's that acronym over there. Beis Ayin Yud. Beis Aleph Yud. Baruch atah Hashem Aleph Mem Hey Elokeinu melech haolam. Top of Ches Amud Aleph 8a. Shahakol bara lichvodo. First bracha, Rabbi said, what I want to point out over here is that the Gemara does not include which bracha in this list, but Priyagavan. Because that's obvious. That's obvious. So Brei Pri HaGofen is not included. That's why, again, you won't find it listed over here. It's not that the Gemara disagrees with it. It's just it's taken for granted that, of course, I'm going to say Brei Pri HaGofen. So here we go. So bracha number, and the order over here may also be somewhat non-specific, as we'll see, but let's go through it. Bracha number 1, which again, we're going to count Brei Pri HaGofen just for our purposes as bracha number 7. So here we go. Shahakol bara lichvodo. The bracha that we make, that everything was created for the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Next bracha, Yotzer HaAdam, which again, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Yotzer HaAdam, that Hashem is the one who fashions man. Next, number 3, Vasher Yatzar Es HaAdam B'Tzalmo, that we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, who is the one who Yatzar Es HaAdam B'Tzalmo, fashioned man in his image, B'Tselem Demus Tavniso, he fashioned him in the image of his form, purposeful form, V'Hiskin Lo Mimenu Binyan Adead, and he prepared for him a Binyan Adead, literally again an eternal structure. Baruch Atah Hashem Yotzer HaAdam. Oh, that is Baruch Atah Hashem Yotzer HaAdam. Now both say, so the truth is, we'll get into the definitions of some of these brachos in just a bit. Next, sos tasis visagela akara. So I'll say actually quite beautiful. So sos tasis visagela akara. So rejoice. Now we'll discuss why there's a double lashon of sos tasis. If you look at Rashi says there is sos. Well, actually, let's read the bracha first. Sos tasis visagela akara. So literally rejoice, and even the akara, the barren one, will rejoice. B'kibotz banaha l'socha b'simcha. When her children are gathered into her, Baruch Atah Hashem misameach Tzion bivaneha. That Hashem, you are the source of all blessing, and you are the one ultimately again who will allow Tzion to rejoice with her sons. What is this bracha about? So if you take a look at Rashi, first of all, Rashi points out over here something very beautiful. In the previous bracha, where we wrote, in the bracha of Asher Yatzar, where we wrote the idea V'Hiskin Lo Mimenu Binyan Adead, that Hashem created for man an everlasting structure. Rashi in the Daf says, Hiya Nekeva. This refers to a wife. So whether it's referring to the physicality of the woman, which B'Pashtos it's not, because that's not an eternal structure, but rather again the benefits of marriage is that marriage could provide one with some degree of eternality. How does marriage provide one with eternality? A family, offspring, children. Man by himself has a limited duration, has a limited life. 70 years a person has, right? 80 if they're lucky. But Lamaisa, marriage gives one this binyan adead. So what's sos tasis? You take a look at Rashi, so beautiful. Rashi says over here, Lefi shanu tzrichin lahalos zikar liyushalayim arosh simchasenu. So it's according to Rashi, the bracha of sos tasis is actually the bracha on Yerushalayim. That's how we remember the Churban. There's an obligation to remember the destruction of Yerushalayim, even in the midst of our simcha, and this is how we remember it. Beautiful. Next, Sameach tesamach reyam ahuvim, ki samechacha yitzircha bigan eden mikadem. So we'll say, so next bracha, and we're going to see a lot of incredible ideas on this particular bracha. So it's literally, again, let's translate it. Sameach tesamach reyam ahuvim. So literally, be joyful, sameach, tisamach, make each other joyful, reim ahuvim, beloved friends, kisamechacha yitzircha bigan eden mikadem, as your Creator has made you happy in Gan Eden in the past, mikedem, mikodem, right, of yesteryear. Baruch Atah Hashem, misameach chasan v'kala. Blessed Hashem, you are the source of all blessing. Misameach chasan v'kala. Let me show you something beautiful over here. So first of all, if you take a look at Rashi, sameach to sameach, we're not going to do this entire Rashi, but what I will point out to you, it is an important Rashi to look at on your own, because Rashi actually comments on the order of the brachos. The order is by design, it's not random. So take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Sameach to samach. So Rashi says, bracha l'chasan v'kala shiatzlichu b'simcha v'tov leiv. So I say this is such a beautiful idea. What's sameach to samach? So according to Rashi, this is a bracha to the chasan and kala, that they should be matzliach, and their hatzlacha, their success in life, should come with simcha, joy, and tov leiv, gladness of heart. Such a beautiful. In other words, you should go ahead and have success in life, and your success should be accompanied by life joy. Because I think you could also read Rashi just a little bit differently and underline this line, if it's your own Gemara. I want to say, listen to how you can read Rashi. Bracha l'chasen v'kala, shiatzlichu b'simcha v'tov leiv, means we give the bracha to the chasen v'kala that you should have hatzlacha in finding simcha. So the Pashup Pshat in Rashi is that you should have hatzlacha, and your hatzlacha should be accompanied by a sense of joy. Perhaps what Rashi is saying is you should give the bracha to the chasen and kala, that you should have hatzlacha in finding simcha. See, we know this because as we get older, we understand this. You could have everything. It doesn't mean you're happy. See, when you're young, you think that happiness is the result of stuff. Right? If I acquire this, if I buy this, if I reach this career milestone, if I hit this metric, then I'll be happy. And as we get older, we recognize all of those things are very nice and very wonderful. But happiness is a choice. Happiness is a choice I have to make. And the moment that I make my happiness dependent on any external factor is the moment that essentially I abdicate any possibility of truly finding simcha. So according to Rashi, this is the bracha. Sameach to samach. We go ahead and we give the chasen and kala. What's the bracha? The bracha is shiatzlichu. You should have hatzlacha in finding simcha. Not that you should have hatzlacha and it should be basimcha, but rather you should have hatzlacha in finding simcha. Because at the end of the day, isn't that the greatest blessing in life? The greatest blessing in life is not having money. Money is great. We'll go on record. Money is good. Right? This is not a wealth ministry, right? But money is good. Material success is good because it makes the rest of life so much easier. But that's not the source of happiness. The source of happiness is a decision to be happy. That's sameach to samach. So Rashi goes on a little bit, but we're not going to get into it right now. So I'll say I'll mention something else with this beautiful bracha. It is interesting to note that we say sameach to samach re'amahumim. We go ahead and we say that Hashem, you should make this chasen and kala as happy as Adam and Chava were in Gan Eden. Now, I don't know about you. I mean, I'm not like the biggest Baki in Chumash, but Adam and Chava doesn't exactly seem to be like a storybook, like a storybook wedding, narrative over here. They were in Gan Eden for a couple of hours. Everything went south. Right? They blamed each other for a whole bunch of stuff. So what's the pshat? We're saying the chasen and kala. You should be like Adam. You should be like Adam and Chava. And I saw the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says something absolutely beautiful. He says, Adam and Chava. What did Adam know with absolute certainty? What do you know with absolute certainty? That Chava was the one for him. And what did Chava know with absolute certainty? That Adam was the one for her. Now, obviously, it helped that there were no other human beings on the face of the earth. But they knew with absolute certainty that they were with the person they needed to be with. What do we give the bracha to the chasen and kala? Right? Let's say, sometimes in Shalom Bayis, it's normal that post-wedding, there's a little bit of buyer's remorse. It happens. It happens, especially in today's shidduch landscape, where people sometimes don't really even know each other all that well. By the time they're getting married, sometimes it happens that afterwards a person thinks to themselves, maybe I could have done better. Chasen thinks this, a kala thinks this, right? So what's the bracha we give to a chasen and kala? You should be like Adam and Chava. Adam was 1,000% sure this was the woman he was supposed to be with. Chava was 1,000% sure that this was the man. And I both said, by the way, all kidding aside, if you go through marriage with that mindset, you could solve virtually any problem. You see, if you go into marriage thinking, it's not such a big deal, there's always an escape hatch. Right? There's always pull in case of emergency. I'm not stuck. I could get out of this if I need to. And sometimes a person does need to get out of things. Absolutely. But Lamais, if you accept the premise that the person who I'm with is mamish like my Chava, the person who I'm with is mamish like my Adam, then there's almost no challenge that you cannot overcome. Incredible. The Gemara goes weiter. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Rabbi say last bracha. Asher bara sason v'simcha. Chasen v'kala. So I will say this is the bracha achrisa. The bracha achrisa. So bracha atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Asher bara sason v'simcha. Hashem has created sason and simcha, different words for joy. Chasen v'kala, gila, rina, ditza, v'chedva, Ava v'achva v'shalom v'reyos. So I will say, in Lashon HaKodesh, there are different words that capture nuance. Often in English, you cannot capture this same nuance. So if you look at this, sason and simcha both translate as how? As joy. But of course, there are different forms of joy. Chasan and kala, gila, rina, ditza, chedva. Again, different forms of joy. Ava, v'yachva, love, camaraderie or friendship. Shalom, peace. Reyos, friendship. Mehira Hashem Elokeinu. Yishama ba'arei Yehuda b'chutzos Yerushalayim. Speedily Hashem. May it be heard in the cities of Yehuda and in the outskirts of Yerushalayim. Kol sason v'kol simcha, kol chasan v'kol kala. Literally, again, the voice of rejoicing, the sason and simcha, the voice of a chasan and a kala. Kol mitzalos chasanim michupasam une'arim mishtein aginasam. The sound of the throngs of chasanim coming from their chuppah, and the young men from the celebrations, niginasam, a beautiful singing. Baruch atah Hashem misameach chasan im hakala. It's so beautiful. You read these words, and you feel a sense of simcha. Even at 6:06 in the morning, you read them, and there's a certain energy that flows through your neshama, a certain simcha that you feel. So I will say, that's Sheva Brachas. And once again, remember, I want to point out, the Gemara is dafka leaving off Brei Pri Hagafen, because we presuppose that Brei Pri Hagafen, of course, is part of this list. Good, the Gemara goes weiter. Levi ikla lebei Rebbe behilul Reb Shimon berei. Suppose to listen to this. So Levi went to the house of Rebbe behilula for the wedding celebration of Rabbi Shimon berei, of Rabbi Shimon, the son of Rebbe. So just to get what's clear here, Rabbi Shimon, the son of Rebbe, is getting married, and Levi went to the chasana. So what happened? So Baruch Chamesh. So apparently it's interesting. They gave Levi all of the Sheva Brachas. Interesting. Never seen that happen before, right? But they gave Levi the Sheva Brachas. Right? But ultimately, again, Levi only made 5 brachas. Okay, we'll discuss what he left off. Next, Ravasi Ekla Lebe Ravashi, Behilula Demar Berei. So Ravashi went to the chasana of Mar, the son, right? Of Demar Berei, of Mar's son, Baruch Shis. He made 6 brachas. So here's what you have. You have Levi making 5 brachas out of the Sheva brachas, and ultimately, again, Ravasi making 6 brachas. Okay, what's going on over here? So Lema Bahak Kamiflagi. So we'll see, what are they arguing about? Here we go. So I want to draw your attention to something very interesting. There are 2 seemingly overlapping brachas, right? If you go back to the list, bracha number 2 was Yotzer HaAdam, the blessed Baruch Hu fashioned man, and then bracha number 3 is Asher Yatzar Es HaAdam L'Tzalmo, right? That Hashem fashioned man in His image. So Rabbi says, so what's going on over here? So here we go. Demar Savar Chadi Yitzir Havi. One opinion says that when it comes to the creation of man, ultimately what? There was one act of creation. Chadi Yitzir Havi, Umar Savar Shtei Yitziros Havi. The other opinion said, no, there were 2 active creations. Rabbi say, now what's going on? Take a look at Rashi. This is Rashi in the wide lines, second wide line. And the second wide line. Chadi Yitzirav, there was one act of creation. Kiman damar be'erevin, vayivan asatzela, pirtzuf, shemetchilas priyaso nivra shnei pirtzufin, zachar milafanav v'nakam. So we'll say, there is, remember from our Erevin days, there is a fundamental machlokas about the creation of man and woman. One opinion says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created one being, fused man and woman together. The front was man, or the back, however you're defining front and back. Right? So we'll call it one side was man, one side was woman. That's how the original human being was created. And then subsequently, HaKadosh Baruch Hu split it into 2. That's the first opinion. So the Gemara is suggesting that the opinion who holds that you only have to make 5 brachas, that's because you don't need 2 brachas of Asher Yatzar. Right? You don't need Yotzer Adam and Asher Yatzar. You only need 1 bracha about creation because there was only one initial act of creation. So the Gemara says, Umar Savar Shtei Yitziros Havi. The other opinion says, no, there were in fact 2 creations. The Gemara says, look at Rashi, Shtei Yitziros, Kiman do Amar Zonav Haya, Umimenu Nivras Ha'isha, V'hari Kan Shtei Yitziros. The second opinion says that no, Chava was created. Now there's 2 versions of this. Version number one is that Adam Rishon had a tail. Wasn't a tail? He had an extra piece of flesh, and that piece of flesh was removed, and Chava was built from that. The second possibility, which is the Pashup Shad and Pasuk, which is what? Hashem took a rib, right? But the idea over here is that there were two distinct acts of creation. First, Hashem created man, and then there was a secondary act of creation which created Chava, which created woman. So Rabbi said, the Gemara is suggesting that this is the fundamental machlokus between Levi and Ravasi. Levi holds that halacha l'maaseh there were two acts of creation, right? And therefore what? Therefore there are going to be two brachas that reflect creation. The bracha of Yotzer Adam and Asher Yatzar Es HaAdam. Versus Ravasi, who holds that there was only one act of creation. Man and woman were created, fused into one being, and subsequently separated. Therefore what? You only need one bracha of Asher Yatzar. To which the Gemara says, maybe not. Lo. The Gemara says, not true. Both everyone agrees that there was one act of creation, namely that Adam and Chava were created as one being, one side male, one side female. So men and women were created initially together and then subsequently separated. So what's the machlokes? Listen to how beautiful this is. So what's the machlokes? Mar savar basar machshava azlinan, umar savar basar maisa azlinan. They both say, what's the machlokes? The machlokes is, do we go after the machshava, the thought of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or the actions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The Rabbi say, what does this mean? This is incredible. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, basar machshava azlinan. I'm in the wide lines of Rashi, 4 lines in. Basar machshava azlinan, sheshnayim alu b'machshava libaros, v'nivru echad be'erev be'parak osepasin. So I say, listen to this. So apparently, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu originally wanted to make Adam and Chava two separate beings. Initially two separate beings, but then he decided to create them in one form. Right? So Rabbi says, so the machlokes is like this. Do the Sheva Brachos reflect the original plan for creation, where there was going to be two distinct acts of creation, one for man, one for woman initially, and therefore two brachos of Asher Yatzar v'Yitzira, or do we go basar maisa? Or ultimately, again, do we go after the actions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where what? He only created what? One being, Adam and Chava fused into one body. The Gemara says, because Rabbi Yehuda contrasts the psukim, Adam b'tzalmo. The pasuk says that Hashem created Adam in his image, which Rabbi say means that Hashem created one being. Uksiv zachar unekeva bera'am. But then it says Hashem created them male and female. So Kate said, we'll say, how do you reconcile it? Did Hashem first create just Adam, or did he create Adam and Chava at the same time? To which the Gemara says, Kate said, originally, Hashem's intention was to create two beings, ulebasof nivra echad. But then in the end, he created one being. Now both say, so again, there's still a machlokes in that one being. Was that one being one side male, one side female? Was it male and from some appendage or from a rib, female was made? But this is the idea I will say. Now, this is a fascinating Gemara, because what I will say, whenever you see Chazal say, Hashem originally had in mind to do X and then he did Y, there's only one problem with this, which is the Rebbe Shalom doesn't change his mind. The Rebbe Shalom has many qualities. One of them is he's exceptionally decisive, right? So I said there's no wavering. So what's the pshat? What's the pshat that Hashem Alam Machshav originally he was going to create two, and then ultimately again he wants to create one. Then he decided to create one. So I'll say I think embedded in this, even if you look at the words, is a profound statement in marriage. As I'll say, look at this line: Betchila Alam Machshav lebaros shnayim. So literally translated, in the beginning, he had a mind to create two, and in the end, he created one. So I will say, I think this phrase is like the most incredible paradigm for successful marriage. How do you build a successful marriage? Of course, I always say this, the simple answer is, I don't know, right? But Lamaisa, perhaps, Chazal are telling us something incredible. Betchila, in the beginning means before you get married. What's the halacha? If you want to build a successful marriage, the way a successful marriage works is before you're married, you have to have a strong individual identity, right? In other words, people who go into marriage not knowing who they are encounter an incredible amount of friction. So betchila, even before you're married, Allah b'machshava Baruch Hu says the machshava is lebaros shnayim. A man has to be an individual, and a woman has to be an individual. You have to know who you are before you join forces with someone else. Now, again, obviously, is there still personalistic self-discovery when you get married as well? Of course. But I will say, here's the shift when you get married. Ulebasof nivra echad. Lebasof means after you get married, nivra echad. Husband and wife have to be one. See, I will say, in marriage, there's no me and you, there's us. In marriage, husband and wife need to come together to become a cohesive unit, to move their life forward in sync. Does it mean that at the end of the day, they're not different people? Does it mean that they don't have differences of opinion, that they don't see eye to eye on things? Of course not. That's part of the fabric of marriage as well. But I will say, as a unit, lebasof nivra echad. As a unit, we are a cohesive entity. But what Chazal are teaching us is sometimes the only way to become a cohesive entity with someone else is first what? To know who you are. If I don't know who I am, then it's very difficult for me to be a team with someone else. And perhaps that's the yesod. In the beginning, you want to build a successful marriage? Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? Who's your what's your identity? Who are you? If you have that individual identity, then you could become a cohesive unit with your spouse and move lockstep and barrel and move together throughout life. And both say that's what marriage is. That's a marriage. They both say sometimes you see it in marriages where like people, because spouses like do their own thing. Right? This one does this one does that. Again, obviously every marriage is different. And if spouses have different interests and they kind of want to, pursue different things independently, of course that's fine. People are separate entities. But Lamaisa, that has to be the exception and not the rule. Marriage is nivra echad. Marriage ultimately is we're one unit, and we move the ball down the field together. Incredible Gemara. Rav Ashi, ikalabe Rav Kahana. So I'll say, here we go. Rav Ashi went to the house of Rav Kahana. Yoma kama baruch kulhu. Suppose it's interesting. So what happened? Shar brachas. So Rav Ashi went to the house of Rav Kahana. So I will say, it's not clear from here whether this was Rav Kahana's Sheva brachas, or maybe it was someone else, his kid's Sheva brachas. All right, in any event, he goes, Yoma kama baruch kulhu. On the first day, they made all of the Sheva brachas. Mikan ve'elech i'ikapanim chadoshos baruch kulhu ve'ilo afushe simcha ba'almahu mevarach shas simcha b'mono va'asher bara. So it's a very interesting idea. So what happened? First day, they made all the Sheva brachas. On the subsequent days, what happened? If there were panim chadashos, like we saw, both say this was the beginning of the Daf on Zayin Amud Beis. If there were panim chadashos, they would make all of the brachas. If there were not panim chadashos, then I both say, then what? This isn't considered to be a Sheva brachas meal. If it's not a Sheva brachas meal, then what is it? Afushe simcha. It's a celebratory meal. And therefore, what do? We make the bracha of Shas Simcha Bim Ono. Now we'll say, Shas Simcha Bim Ono is not a bracha. What is it? That's the opening, that's benching, right? Baruch Elokeinu Shas Simcha Bim Ono v'Shachal Mishalo. We'll say that's a unique opening of benching, a unique mizuman, a unique zimun that we make for Sheva brachas. V'Asher Bara, and the bracha of Asher Bara. So I'll say, so apparently, what the Gemara is suggesting over here is that the bracha of Asher Bara ultimately is made even without panim chadashos. So we'll say incredible. So if you have panim chadashos, you make Sheva brachas all the 7 days of celebration. If you don't have panim chadashos, you'll use the unique introduction to benching and the bracha of Asher Bara, and that's it. To which the Gemara says, Mishiva ad shloshim. Listen to this. But I'll say, what about from after the 7 days of celebration up until shloshim? So it says interesting, right? Because you begin to see the same breakdown of time for what? For marriage and avelos. No jokes, right? But Lamaisa, it is very interesting that it's the same construct, right? You have 7 days of Sheva brachas, 7 days of Shiva, 30 days shloshim for avelos, 30 days. So from the end of Sheva brachas up until 30 days. So listen to this. Bein amrlu machmas hilula, bein amrlu machmas hilula, bevar simcha b'mono. So this is very interesting. Any meal that the chassan and kala are part of, even after Sheva brachas, up until 30 days after their marriage, we use this special introduction to benching. Isn't that incredible? I was about to say, even if the stated goal of the Su'udah is not celebratory, right? Even if the stated goal of the Su'udah is just a bunch of friends getting together, if the Chasana and Kala are there within 30 days after the Chasana, halacha l'maisa, you have this special introduction. Mikan ve'elech. After that, Amr lahu machmas hilula mevarich shasimcha b'mano v'ilo lo. He'll say, this is wild. After the 30 days, if there is a Su'udah that's for the express purpose of celebrating the nuptials of this Chassan and Kala, we still use this special introduction to benching. Rabbi will say, what's the Aviyah? So how long, right? How long does that go on for? We'll see that in just a moment. The Gemara says, okay, so I understand. You're going to tell me now that anytime, even after the 30 days, that you're getting the Chassan and Kala together for a meal to celebrate their wedding, we'll do this special intro to benching. How long? Full year. So I just want to point out what we have over here. For Sheva Brachos, first 7 days after they get married, if they're Panim Chadashos, then what? Full Sheva Brachos and special intro to benching. No Sheva Brachos, no Panim Chadashos, what do you have? Special intro to benching and Asher Bara. After Sheva Brachos, up for the first 30 days, what do you have? Even if there's not a stated goal of celebrating the wedding, if the Chassan and Kala are there, special intro to benching. After 30 days for the first year, if the express purpose of the gathering is to celebrate the wedding of the Chassan and Kala, then special intro to benching. Incredible. Umeikar me'emas, I will say interesting. How early can you start? If you look at Rashi over here, actually, me'emasai havyaschala simchas choba levar simcha b'mono. So I will say, I think that's an interesting question. How early, or from what point and on, can you begin with the special intro to benching of what we call shasimcha b'mono v'sha'achalnu mishalo? Right? So we do this today, right? So how early, in other words, from what point can you begin to use the special intro to benching? So listen to this is incredible. So the Gemara says, Amra Papa, Michi Rami Sa'ari Ba'asinta. So this is interesting. If you look at Rashi gives two yourselves, 5 lines up from the bottom, 4 lines up from the bottom. Michi Rami Sa'ari Ba'asinta, Yesh Shorim Sa'orim Ba'arivas Mayim, Lahato Shecha L'Tzar Schopa. We'll say, when you begin to soak the barley to make the beer. So apparently everyone knows, when you soak that barley, the party has officially begun, right? So the moment you begin to soak the barley, that's like the beginning of the simcha celebration. Rashi then goes on, V'ish omrim, l'shem ha'chasan v'akala zorin sa'orin ba'atzitz, lomar peru uravu v'simchu kisor alava. Say, this is beautiful. Rashi quotes an ancient custom that for a chasana, what they would do is, they would take a perforated flower pot, an atzitz nakov, and they would plant barley. 1 stalk of barley for the chasan, 1 stalk of barley for the kala. And they would say, now barley is the fastest growing grain. And they would say that just like the barley is being fruitful and multiplying, so too the chassan and kala should be fruitful and multiplying. So such a beautiful, and I guess the chassan and kala would keep the plant, they'd keep the barley plant, I don't know, in their apartments or something, the windowsill. So I'll say this was, first of all, it's a good low budget chassan gift also, right? I'll say, so again, So again, 2 different opinions. Either putting the barley in the water for the beer, or sowing the barley in the pot, in the perforated flower pot for the chassan and kala. But essentially, once that happens, that's the beginning of the simcha. Ini, is that so? HaRav Papa Rav Papa went ahead and made a wedding for Abba Mara's son, Ubarach Mishas Erisin, and he made the special benching already by Erisin. Shani Rav Papa David Tarichle. Rav Papa was different because Rav Papa had people to take care of all of this stuff. So the first time that Rav Papa was actively involved in anything was by his Su'uda by the Eris. In other words, Rav Papa didn't put the barley in the beer. Rav Papa didn't sow the barley plant in the perforated pot. He had people. So the first time Rav Papa was actively involved in something was the Su'uda by Erisin. Therefore, that was the first time that Rav Papa used a special intro to benching. Rabbi say, beautiful. Second wide line. Ravina Yasek Le'lebrei Be'Rav Chaviv. Rabbi says, incredible Gemara. Ravina made a chasana for his son with the daughter of Rav Chaviva, Ubarich Mishas Erisin, and he decided to use the special intro to benching from Erisin. So I say, by the way, is much earlier. Remember again, it was up to a year. in between Erusin and Nisuin. So which means he's ready to use this special intro to benching for a whole year. So Papa said, I'm sorry. So Ravina said, Kamli b'gavayu, I'm confident, dolo hadri behu. I feel confident to do this. Why? Because the Kalas family is not going to break off the shidduch, right? The shidduch is golden. It's good to go. Nothing is going to happen. What's the end of the story? Lo estaya milsa v'hadri behu. Something didn't work out, and the Kalas family walked away from the shidduch. So I will say, what a story. What a story. So you wonder to yourself, like, okay, why you have to include this? We'll say, what a Musar Haskell. Never be overly confident about anything in life, and never assume that anything is a done deal until it's a done deal. And I will say, this is true in everything. If you're working on something, I will say, if you think about it, a lot of times in life, the reason why things don't get done is because we take projects 75% of the way, and then we assume that the last 25% is just going to fall into place. And we forget that often it's the last 25% that need the most amount of effort. And so stuff remains undone. And I can't believe, I worked so hard. You worked so hard, but you left it to someone else to finish it. Or you left it to chance to finish it. If you want something done in life, see it through to the finish line. And Abba says it's true with ourselves as well. The Mishnah of it says, Al tamin ba'atzmecha ad yom moscha. Don't believe in yourself until the day that you die. Never believe you're above temptation. Never believe that you've got things figured out. The only time in life that you're above temptation is when you're dead. And the only time that I've got things figured out is when I'm dead. Not because I figured everything out, but there's nothing really more to figure out once I'm dead. So Lamais, again, don't believe that you've got it all done. Right? Understand, don't believe in yourself. As I will say, person has to be constantly and perpetually working on themselves until I can no longer do so. Leave no life project to chance, get it done, and finish it to completion. And Lamaisa, when working on yourself, don't assume you're in a good spot. I'm good. You might be good, but Lamaisa, without constant, perpetual self-improvement, a person slips back and regresses. Incredible story. Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arav Ekel Bavel. Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arav went to Bavel. Baruch Shis Arichta. So this is interesting. He made six brachas. Rabbi say, but again, he transformed them all into long brachas. Rabbi say, the definition of a long bracha is what? One that begins with Baruch and ends with Baruch. So he decided to make a longer form for less hilchas hakavase. No, the halacha doesn't follow that way. Rav Chaviva Ekel Bei Mehula. So we'll say Rav Chaviva went to a bris. Bei Mehula means he went to a bris. Baruch Shasimcha Bim Ono. So I will say he decided to use the introductory Shasimcha B'mono for benching. Right? Now I will say, now what does Shasimcha B'mono means? We say that the Simcha is in his abode. Now I will say, the abode is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We assume that when a Yid is B'simcha, when a Jew is B'simcha in this world, Hashem is B'simcha in his abode as well. So therefore, again, comes along Rav Chaviva, goes to a bris. What is Simcha? So he decides to add in Shasimcha B'mono before benching. The halacha doesn't follow him. Why not? Bishum detridi deis leit tzara liyanuka. Because I say by a bris, not everyone is happy, right? Who's not happy? The baby's not happy, and also the mother, right? Often again, there's pain because Shabbos say, by the way, is such a profound yesod that as long as there is another Jew who is in a state of tsar, a Jew has to realize, I'm not in a complete state of happiness when there is someone else who is suffering. So my simcha at a bris is somewhat muted. The baby's not going to remember. It's true, the baby's not going to remember. But Lamaisa, right now, the baby is probably a shtickle uncomfortable, right? And the mother, father also, but it's different for a mother, feels that pain when she knows that her child is going through pain as well. So I will say, if there are other Jews who are bitsar, then by definition, I'm enjoying my bagel and my lox. It's fantastic, right? It's going to be a good day, right? But Lamaisa, my simcha is muted when I know that someone else is not besimcha. Incredible. Amram Nachamarav, what's the Toja? Good daf. Chasanim min aminyan ve'ein avela min aminyan. So what's an interesting statement? Rav Nachman is the name of Rav. Chasanim are part of the minyan, but avela mourners are not part of the minyan. I will say, we don't know what this is talking about. I should say, for Chasanim, I understand. For Chasanim, the assumption is, what are we talking about? Shar brachas. Avelim, I don't know what it means that they're part of the minyan. Or I should say that they're not part of the minyan. Let's analyze. Here we go. So the Gemara says, Meisvei, Chasanim va'avelim min minyan. I have a brayso that says Chasanim and Avelim are both part of the minyan. Masnisa karamis ali derav. You're bringing a Mishnah to go ahead and contradict Rav. Rav Tani, Rav is a Tana. And because he's a Tana, what could he do? Upalig, he could argue on a Mishnah. Good. Itmar, Amar Yitzchak, Rabbi Yochanan, Chasanim bin Aminyan, Vein Avelim bin Aminyan. Chasanim count as part of the minyan, but Avelim don't count as part of the minyan. Meisiyar is a kasha. Chasanim va'avelim bin Aminyan. I just want to point out, we don't know what we're talking about over here. In other words, again, Chasanim, I'm pretty sure it's Sheva Brachas. Avelim, I don't know what Avelim has to do with a minyan. So again, a brayso, Chasanim va'avelim bin Aminyan. Chasanim and Avelim are part of the minyan. So we'll say, Abed Beis, Kitanya hahi beberkas hamazon. Oh, okay, let's talk about this. When do we say that an Avel is part of a minyan? I will say that's a reference to benching. What's the pshat by benching? Look at top Rashi Chasam Days. Let's starif legimel lezamein alav sharichai b'chal mitzvos. So I will say the Gemara is suggesting over there. What does it mean when an Avel is sitting shiva and they're benching in the home? The Avel can be part of the mezumin, or if there's a minyan, be part of the minyan. That's what it means that the Avel is part of the minyan. So I will say, okay, but what does it mean when Rabbi Yochanan said before that the Avel is not part of the minyan? What does that refer to? Ki kam Rabbi Yochanan b'shura. I will say that refers to the shura. Now I will say the shura is the line. What's that? If you look at Rashi, ki shayuchozim min hakever hayu osin shura saviv haohel. Lenachamo, umoshiven also. So it's interesting. In times, see, we do this today also. We do it differently. In times of the Gemara, the Shura was actually a circle around the Avel. They used to form a circle around the Avel and offer him words of condolences as he was sitting shiva. So I will say, so again, that requires a minyan. That Shura, an Avel is not part of. So when we say an Avel is part of a minyan, that means if during shiva they're benching, or I should say, Avel min minyan means the Avel counts. When does the Avel count? If during Shiva, there's a mezumin in the Shiva home, or there's a minyan in the Shiva home, the Avel counts as one of the minyan, one of the mezumin. For the Shura, he does not. So both say contemporarily, we know we do the Shura a little bit differently. By us, we do it in the cemetery, and we just form two lines, two parallel lines, and the Avel walks through. Same concept, but a little bit different. So the Alahadar Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yochanan, so I will say, 1 second, but we said before Rabbi Yochanan said, we make birchas chasana ba'asara v'chasanim min minyan. We make sheva brachas. For sheva brachas, you need 10 people, and the chasanim are part of the 10. The Gemara says, ubirchas avelim ba'asara. We make the bracha for avelim, ve'ein avelim min minyan. But the avelim are not part of the minyan. So I will say, so now we say this is about a bracha. Bracha b'shura mi'ika. So I'll say you wanted to say that when Rabbi Yochanan said before that avelim don't count as part of the minyan, that was in the shura, that was in the circle. Right now we're saying that the avel doesn't count as part of birchas avelim. The bracha. Now I'll say in the shura there's no bracha. So what's going on over here? Kikam Rabbi Yochanan berachava. I will say this is fascinating. When does Rabbi Yochanan say that the avelim don't count as part of the minyan? That was for the gathering in the street. Look at Rashi berachava. This is incredible. Rashi says, "Kishemevarin es ha'avel seuda rishona mishal achirim." Both say, listen to this. The order is as follows, right? So Ruvain loses his father Yaakov. Okay, so there's a levaya. Ruvain buries his father. Ruvain now comes back. Rabbi say the first meal that Ruvain has is what's called the Sudas Havra. We still have this today, right? That meal, we learned in Moed Katan, cannot come from the Avel's own household. That has to be provided for by the community. That meal was customarily eaten in the street, in a public setting. Rashi says, Berachava, Kishem Mevarin es Avel B'suda Rishona, Mishal Acher, G'lemim Ha'ikon, Ha'y Mevarin oso Berachava, O Mevarchin Sham Birchas Avelim. This is incredible. So the Avel would be eating the first meal in the street in a public setting, and it was there during that meal that the community would come and they would say a bracha. We'll see what the bracha is. They would say a bracha. So Rav Yochanan is saying that bracha requires a minyan, and who is not part of that minyan? The Avel. Avel is not part of that minyan. So the Gemara says, "Allah hadar Rabbi Yitzchak am Rabbi Yochanan mevarchin berchas chasanim ba'asara kol shiva berchasanim min minyan." I have what we learned. Rabbi Yochanan said, excuse me, that you can make sheva brachas berchas chasanim with 10 people, right? And the chasan is part of the minyan. Right, all sheva brachas. Ubirchas avelim ba'asara kol shiva. You can make birchas avelim, right, with a minyan, all the days of Shiva, but the avelim are not part of the minyan. So Rabbi say, here's the problem. You're making a bracha all 7 days. Rechava kol Shiva mi'ika. Rabbi say, the only time you're making the bracha in the street is when? First day. Rabbi say, not even first day. It's one time when as the avel is eating his sudas havra, his meal of consolation provided by the community comes out and offers him this blessing of consolation. So the Gemara says, mi'ika. I'm sorry. So brechas rechava kol Shiva mi'ika mishkachas la bepanim chadashos. Rabbi say, this is fascinating. Yes. There is a time where you will go ahead and make the bracha, what we call the birchas avelim, which is a bracha for the avelim. There is a time where you would even make it past the first day. And when is that? Panim chadashos. Someone comes to make a shiva visit who was not at the levaya, who was not at the sudas havra'ah. We don't pass him this way, but apparently he would make the birchas avelim as well. So I will say, and therefore what Rabbi Yochanan was saying is, that birchas avelim requires what? Requires a minyan. And who's not part of that minyan? The other. Rabbi say, watch this Gemara. This is a dramatic Gemara. Here we go. So the Gemara says as follows. Ki had Rav Chia bar Abba, makre b'nei d'Reish Lakish Abba. Rabbi say, Rav Chia bar Abba was the Rebbe. He taught the sons of Reish Lakish Kriya. He was the Kriya, the reading Rebbe of the sons of Reish Lakish. Amri lei, masni b'rei d'Reish Lakish. Others say he taught them Mishnayos. Point over here is Reb Chia bar Abba was a Rebbe to the children of Reish Lakish. What happened to Reb Chia bar Abba? Shachiv le'yenuka. Unfortunately, Reb Chia bar Abba's young child passed away. So Reb Chia bar Abba lost a child. He's sitting Shiva. Yoma kama lo azal gabe. So Reish Lakish wanted to go ahead and make a Shiva visit. He didn't go the first day. Now, I will say there are reasons for that. We saw in Masar's Moed Cotton that there's a concept of not going to visit the Avel, according to some opinion, the first day, according to other opinions, the first 3 days, because that's when the mourning is most intense, and we want to give the Avel some level of privacy. All right. He doesn't go the first day. What happens? Lemachar dabri lo azal gabe. Lemachar dabri li Yehuda bar Nachmani miturgamani. The next day, Reish Lakish wants to go pay a Shiva visit. He says to Yehuda bar Nachmani, who was his Torgaman. Let's remember again, what's a Torgaman? We translate Torgaman as a translator, but remember that's not what it is. Remember, Reish Lakish would give shir, and what would be the job of Yehuda bar Nachmani? To take sometimes like more lofty concepts and to translate them or to say them over in ways which were digestible even by the common individual. So Reish Lakish says, Yehuda bar Nachmani, come with me to the Shiva visit. I want you again to speak on my behalf at the Shiva visit. Okay. We'll say, watch this. Amar Leib. So now you have to imagine the scene. So Reb Chia bar Abba is sitting Shiva for his young son. Reish Lakish comes in with Yehuda, his Torgaman. Amar Leib. So Reish Lakish says to Yehuda, Klum ema milsa kal kabel yunuka. Say something about the death of a child. Say words to Reb Chia about the death of a child. So Yehuda Torgaman says, Pasach v'amar, Vayara Hashem vayinatz mikas banav ubenosov. Hashem saw, and he was provoked in his anger because of his sons and daughters. And says Yehuda, what does that pasuk mean? Dor sha'avos miletzam la'kadosh baruch hu kois al bneihem v'al benoseihem umesim kishem kitanim. A generation where the fathers provoke HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Ribono Shel Olam takes out the punishment on their young children, and they die. I would say, so again, what Yehuda is trying to convey is, how could a young child die? At the end of the day, a young child doesn't have any level of responsibility. So Yehuda is darshaning that a young child dies, unfortunately, because of the sin of the parents. That the child is considered to be an extension. So I'll say, so here, just to understand, Reish Lakish comes into Be'er visit. He says to Yehuda, offer some words of consolation about the death of a child, and it seems to be that Yehuda gives like this scathing comment, essentially telling Rav Chia bar Abba that it must be that your child died because of your sins. We'll see what he meant next. Vikadami, others say Bachar Hava, that Rav Chia bar Abba's son was not a young child, rather he was a young man. He was a young man. This is what Yehuda said to him. Al kain al bachurav lo yismach. Hashem, that on the Bachrim, on the young man, Hashem will not be happy. He will not have compassion upon his orphans or widows. Kikulo chanaf umeira v'cholpeh dover nevala. because this is a reference to the Bachrim, to the young men. Ultimately, again, he is all chanifa, all treachery, umera, all negative, and his mouth speaks disgusting things. B'chol zos lo shav apo, right? And with all of this, Kadosh Baruch Hu's anger has not retreated. Va'od yado netuya, and furthermore, his hand is outstretched. My va'od yado netuya. Rabbi say, what does it mean that his hand is outstretched? In other words, Rabbi say, the pasuk is making reference to the fact that the primary transgression of the Bachrim, of the young men, was the way they spoke. That they spoke in immoral, perverted, disparaging ways. So what could be so bad? To which the Gemara says, listen to this. Amrav Chanan Barav, Hakol Yodin Kala Lama Nichnas Alachapa. We'll say a very profound Gemara. Everyone knows what the Chas and the Kala are going to do when the wedding is over. Right? Everyone knows that they're going to consummate their relationship on their wedding night. Ela Kol Hamenavel Piv Umotzi Davar Nevala Mipiv. And I will say ultimately again, but anyone who talks about it, right? Anyone who says something about it and debases, I will say, what's really happening over here? Right? Well, anyone who talks about it and debases it, Afilu Nechtam Lo Gizardino Shal Shevim Shana Latova, even if he's been decreed, right? For 70 years of good, Napach Alav Lira. Ultimately, again, his good decree is overturned for an evil decree. And I will say, this is pretty wild if you think about it, by the way, because it doesn't say this, like, a person eats tarfus, a person eats chazer, a person is machal Shabbos, a person is bo'al arayas, right? You don't have statements like this, right? So you don't have statements like this. And here, a person talks about what the chassan and kala are going to do after the wedding, and suddenly, again, even if they have a good decree sealed for 70 years, it's overturned and thrown out. But say, what happens when you talk about what the chassan and kala are going to do on their wedding night? You're taking something that is so kadosh, that is so holy, that is so beautiful, and you're debasing it. And the truth is, the worst transgression a person could commit is not stam and aveira. We all commit averos, right? We all commit averos. The worst transgression you could do is take something holy and make it profane. And make it profane, to debase it like that. And I will say, by the way, I was going to point out, I don't know, we've all been at chasanas where we've heard some guy, right, make a comment like this. And the truth is, you feel nauseous from it. You're like, what's the matter with you? Okay, you're the perverted joke guy, right? Everybody's got that perverted joke guy, right? That you're that guy. Not here. This is such kedusha. This is such beauty. Why are you doing this here? So I will say, okay, so now, two different versions of the story. Either way, what's happening over here? Yehuda comes to Menachem Aval with Reish Lakish, right? And ultimately, Yehuda seems to deliver scathing rebuke to Rav Chia bar Abba, telling him that his children have died, or his child has died, because of his infractions. To which the Gemara says, either because if it was a young child, because of Rav Chia bar Abba's sins, or if it was a young man, because of the young man's sins. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. Says the Gemara, Asal Nachume, first wide line, Asal Nachume, Sari Kamasarle, he came to give nechama, and now he's causing him such pain by saying these terrible things. This is what Yehuda meant to say. Chashiv atla fusei adara. I will say it's incredible. Yehuda was not saying to Rav Chia bar Abba that you have committed these sins or your child has. What he's saying to Rav Chia bar Abba is, you are being held responsible for the sins of the generation. I will say that sometimes the tzaddik is forced to bear the burden of the generation. So the only reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu would have caused you to lose a child is not chas v'shalom because of your own averus, or not chas v'shalom because of anything that your bacher's son did, but it must be that you, as the tzaddik of the generation, must bear the collective responsibility for the dar. An overwhelming thing. So I will say he's giving him perspective. That unfortunately sometimes tragedy and loss is part of the price of leadership as well. Incredible. So the Gemara says, listen to this. So Amrlei, kum ema milsa k'neged shachar Kadosh Baruch Hu. So we'll say, so now they go on. So remember again, this is Reish Lakish. Right? Do I have my names right over here? Yeah, Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says to Yehuda, actually we'll say, no, we'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up, we'll say, I want to point out the exchange is not over. Remember, I will say, I just want to point out where we up to. By the way, don't worry, tomorrow's daf is very short. Let's say, so I just want to point out where we up to. So just understand, the Gemara, we saw the Rabbi Yochanan's statement. Rabbi Yochanan said, Chasanim count as part of the minyan, Avelim do not count as part of the minyan. We don't know what minyan we're talking about. We know that they don't count as part of the minyan for the shura, for the line, for the circle that takes place during the Sudas Havrah, but there seems to be something more. So we'll say the Gemara suggests it's birchas avelim. But does birchas avelim occur during the Shiva? That's why this story is here. We'll say Meretz Hashem to be continued tomorrow. Shkoyach.